Paul Thomas Anderson is one of our greatest living filmmakers. His unique take on California life was some of the best cinema coming out of the studio system in the 90s and 2000s. And while some of his later films stretched beyond those boundaries, the characters remained distinctly Anderson. Sad, lonely, and alienated people struggling to be accepted by a world that doesn't understand them. But before Anderson's career shot into the stratosphere, he made a little movie called Hard Eight, his first feature. Originally titled Sydney, but changed by the production company. And that change was indicative of the long, hard battle Anderson fought against the producers to keep his vision intact. Hard Eight was based on a short film Anderson had made a few years prior, called Cigarettes and Coffee. That film was accepted into the Sundance Film Festival and Anderson into the Sundance Lab, a filmmaker's workshop that prepared directors to make a feature film. Armed with $3 million and a rock-solid cast, Anderson set out to forge his future with a film that would announce his presence in the filmmaking world and begin a stylistic trend that would evolve over the course of his career. Hard Eight has a kind of quiet intensity and almost foreboding sense of inevitability. There is guilt teeming beneath the surface. This guilt is personified in the character of Sydney, played with grace by Philip Baker Hall, someone who would become an important collaborator to Anderson. Sydney's personality is one of stoicism and quiet confidence. In a sense, he is like the noble samurai, the elegant elite warrior of medieval Japan, who put bravery, honor, and personal loyalty above all else. In the film, Sydney's backstory is that he killed John's father, and his taking the young lad under his wing feels like the actions of a guilty man. But Sydney's methodology is complex and difficult to penetrate. He doesn't treat John as someone whose father he'd killed. He shows no obvious remorse and at no moment seems conflicted when dealing with John. His actions are direct, his communication straightforward, but his intentions seem nebulous. When John makes a snooty comment, Sydney is greatly offended, and he lays out the specific reasons as to why John shouldn't be acting this way. Even though he killed John's father, a simple wise-ass comment from the lad is still unacceptable to him, and he never wavers from his personal sense of integrity. Sydney is a complex character. This complex nature extends to his dealings with Clementine, the restaurant waitress. He hasn't killed anyone Clementine knows, yet he treats her with the same kind of fatherly wisdom and protective instinct that he showed toward John. But an important distinction here is that Sydney is critical of the establishment that punishes Clementine for not flirting or deflecting the advances of her sexually aggressive customers. It's less about Clementine's choice of engaging in prostitution and more about the rules of the establishment in which she's trapped. He doesn't scold her or lecture her about her choices in life. Doesn't tell her she's above using her body to make money. It's not about that for Sydney, even when she offers herself to him sexually, an easy situation for a seemingly lonely old man. He not only refuses, but seems offended by the offer. Sydney only wants what's obvious and on the surface, a comfortable bed and shower for her. Since he's revealed earlier that he has an older son and daughter who he doesn't speak with, it's easy to assume his actions toward John and Clementine are fatherly in nature. But you would think that if he truly saw Clementine as a kind of surrogate daughter, he'd advise her to stop using her body for financial gain. Instead, he seems to understand why she would do it and doesn't try to stop her. He respects other people's choices and doesn't judge them for it. Sydney's unusual rule set becomes even more apparent in his dealings with Jimmy, John's charismatic friend. When Jimmy makes a crass sexual comment toward a waitress, Sydney's objection isn't over the comment itself, but the fact that the waitress might hear it and grow uncomfortable. Sydney is unconcerned with morality and more concerned with maintaining a level of respect. It's easy to see why he thought it might be fine to shoot John's father in the face, but unacceptable to make a waitress uncomfortable. Sydney's background seems to be in the gangster trade. He's methodical, exacting, and swift when it comes to dealing with problems, and shows no hesitation when it's necessary to act. All samurai-like traits. But just how noble is Sydney? When Jimmy threatens to tell John what he did to his father, Sydney does everything he can to avoid it. Wouldn't admitting to John his reasons for taking an interest in him be the noble thing to do? Sidney seems more interested in protecting his own personal image than having the integrity to admit his violent deed. And wouldn't it be more noble to let Jimmy keep the $6,000 that was part of their deal? A deal is a pact, and breaking it is not an honorable thing to do. So you see, Sidney's complexity comes from him bending the rules of his own code of conduct to suit his selfish personal needs. There's probably a good reason his kids don't speak to him anymore. All of these revelations about Sidney's true nature come out during Jimmy's teardown of Sidney in the hotel room.
You walk around like you're Mr. Cool, Mr. Wisdom, but you're not. You're just some old hood.
Jimmy sees right through Sidney, and Sidney's act of killing Jimmy later seems less like tying up loose ends in case Jimmy goes to the cops, and more about Sidney getting revenge for Jimmy forcing him to look in the mirror, past his surface image and into his true nature. This is what the final shot of the film is all about, when Sidney covers the blood he notices on his sleeve. He isn't just covering up evidence, he's closing the door on his own self-reflection. These later revelations put Sidney and John's relationship in a new light. Instead of someone who seems to be helping John, it becomes clear that Sidney has corrupted him. The first thing he does is teach John to cheat the casino, and then John becomes a gambling addict, someone living in a casino, eventually committing other crimes like kidnapping and extortion. This isn't as straightforward a story as it may have initially seemed, and it's the genius of Hard Eight. There are no easy answers in Paul Thomas Anderson's quiet, reflective meditation on the sins of a father-like character. Some of these themes would show up in his later films. Hard Eight remains a criminally underseen and underappreciated film that everyone should see. If you enjoyed this video, consider hitting the like and subscribe button, as I'll be posting more content in the future. Thanks for watching.